Okay, so today we're going to start with solving it. So you see day one because there's parts to it. Okay, so we're going to start with day one. So I put on some problems here. Number one, A and B. Those are problems. Hopefully, you look semi-familiar. You probably did them back in junior high. Okay, they were called proportions, which is the same thing as what we're doing today. Okay, they were called proportions back then. So let's look at 1A. They're equal, right? So they have to be the same. So what I did for these is to go from one side, to the other. What do I have to do? I don't need a common. You're close. You're getting there. What is that going to do? What do I have to do to get from one side to the other? Multiply by 2, right? Kind of like a common denominator, right? Multiply by 2 and you get 4, right? So since they're equal, don't I just do the same thing to the top? Multiply by 2, multiply by 2, and you get x is equal to 18, right? 9 over 2 is the same thing as 18 over 4. They're equivalent. They're equal. Okay? There's other ways to do it. So your teacher might have taught you different ways, but that's probably the easiest way to do it. Okay? So 1B. 1B, same thing. The bottom, to get from 4 to 8, what am I going to do? Multiply times 2 again, right? You won't always multiply times 2, but in this case you do. So the top, multiply times 2 as well, right? That means I get 14. There you go. I was going to say that. My next thing was going to say, but if I put that in to delta math, it would be wrong. And you guys are right, because I have to have a negative here. Because one side is negative, so the other side has to be negative. And I can't make 8 negative. 8's already there. I can't change 8. It's already there. But I can change 14 to make it negative. Okay? So that's very familiar to what we're doing today. Okay? So example number 2 is more of the ones that you see today. We have our steps there, which are also written on the board if you're in class. Okay, so same steps here. The problem is we can't go straight across like we did nice and easy there, right? I can't say, oh, what multiplies here? And you can't do that, okay? Or it makes the problem a lot more difficult. Same thing here. What multiplies can't multiply by 2 or anything. So we have to have a different way of doing it, and we do. It's called cross multiply, cross multiplication. Some of you have done that before, okay? Cross multiplying doesn't mean go straight across. It means go across the equal sign diagonally. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. So if I were to cross multiply these guys, what I would get is this guy times this guy and multiply. So those two in red multiply times each other. 2x minus 8 times 5, both of them times 5. So it's going to be a 5, and then what you're multiplying times, right? Because I'm multiplying 5 times both of them, not just 2x and not just negative 8. And then you go the other way. Start with 8, then multiply this guy, and go that way as well. So 8 times x minus 2, and then the equal sign stays in the middle. Equal sign always stays in the middle. Now no more fractions. Fractions are gone, which is what we like, right? So that's the first step, cross multiply. Second step, simplify and solve. Okay, so we've seen, let me write this first real quick. We've seen this before here. How do we simplify and solve this? What are the steps to simplify and solve? We've seen this plenty of times before. Yeah, but
well, could it be like do 5 times 8 on one side and then do 8 times 5 on the other?
What is that called? Yeah.
Cross multiply.
Not cross multiplying. Cross multiplying is what we just did. Distribute. Yeah, distributive property. We've done that before. Distributive property to get rid of the parentheses, right, on each side. Okay, so we get 8x minus 16 equals 10x minus 40, right? That's step one. Now we've done this before where we got to solve for x, right? So we get x on one side, we get the numbers on the other side. We've done this before plenty, but it might be a while since we've done it. So I like to get, you don't have to do it this way, but I like to get the x's on the left side and numbers on the other side. So subtract 10x from both sides, you get negative 2x, bring everything down. And then we got to add 16 to both sides. We get negative 24. Divide both sides by negative 2. A negative divided by a negative makes a positive, and we get 12. So pretty much the only new thing we did on that problem that we haven't done in this class is the first step, cross multiply. We haven't done that before. So that was the new step. Once we got there, we just solved like we've done. I think solving equations like that was the first thing we did back in August, and then we've been doing it since then. Okay, it's a linear equation because we only got one answer, 12. Okay. The last step in this process is check for extraneous solutions. Extraneous solutions are answers that don't work. And in this case, why won't they work? Because we're dealing with fractions. And when you have fractions, what can you not have with fractions? I have an example on the board I can't have I can't have 0 on bottom. Why not? Well, I'll show you. Exactly. Right? I'll show you. No. I hit an add. Let's try it one more time. No, don't want that. Okay. Why do I keep hitting ads? Okay, let's try this. I'm not gonna hit clear this time. So let's say 8. Let's say a random number, 8. Divided by 0. And I get my answer as, why is it gonna give me an error? Why is it 0? If I do it the other way, 8 divided by, or 0 divided by 8, I get an answer. But when I put the number first and the 0 second on bottom, I get an error. Exactly. You can't divide by nothing, right? The top number is how many total you have. The bottom number is how many groups you're going to break them up into. That's division. Division is breaking them up into groups, right? So how can you have no group? So I have 8 pencils, and I'm going to break them up into no groups. I'm not going to have any groups. How many pencils are in each group? I don't have any groups, so how can I have anything in them, right? That's why it doesn't work, right? If I have 8 pencils in my hand, I have to have at least one group, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 pencils in my hand, and I need to break them into 0 groups. How many pencils are going to be in each group? I can't do it, right? This is one group, isn't it? I can't even have that. So how do I see how it doesn't work? It's not common sense, right? Doesn't make any sense. I need to break these up into no groups. Oh, we'll just leave them there. Well, that's one group. I can't even do that. So how it doesn't it's illogical, right? That's why your calculator says error. Your calculator says error because he can't do it. Okay? You can do the other one. The other one says I have no pencils and 8 groups. How many pencils are going to go in each group? 0. That's a number. I can do that. 0, right? There's just 8 groups with no pencils, but I can't do the other one. That's why your calculator says error. Okay? But your calculator doesn't have a brain, right? It's an algorithm. It works on algorithms. So it can't tell you that. It just tells you error. Okay, that's why. All right, so getting back to why is that important? It's important because we can't have 0 on the bottom. So if I plug in 12 to the bottom, am I going to get 0? So if I plug it in here, is there anywhere to plug in here? Oh, it's got a delay on it. Give me a second. I don't know why there's a delay, but if I plug in 0 here, well, if I plug in 12 there, well, first of all, can I plug in 12 there? No. So it's just always going to be 8, right? So if I plug in 12 here, I get 24 minus 8, which is 16, right? That's not 0. So I didn't get 0 anywhere. So it's an okay answer. 1 box, delta math, 12, enter, enter, green check. What's that? Exactly. With fractions, you only worry about the bottom. I can get a 0 on top. That's okay, right? I just can't get a 0 on the bottom. Yeah, so when you're checking for extraneous with fractions, you only need to check the bottoms. Okay. All right, let's try B now. Okay. So B, same thing. I have a fraction and it equals another fraction. So the first step I'm going to do is cross multiply. Okay. So I cross multiply here, cross multiply here. Okay. So when I cross multiply the red, I get 2 times x minus 7. When I cross multiply blue, I get 5x minus 1 equals in the middle. Now I'm back where step 1 is done. Now simplify and solve. We've done this before. Distributive property. 2x minus 14 on one side, 5x minus 5 on the other side. Subtract 2x from both sides, get x's on one side, get numbers on the other. Okay. Add 5 to both sides. -9. Divide by 3. X equals -3. Okay. So once you do step 1, everything else is the same. You've done that before. I get one answer. That one answer, is that going to cause any of the denominators to be 0? Is that going to cause this guy or this guy to be 0? No. It's going to make a -10 over here, and it's going to make a -4 over here. So because no, you're done. Okay. All right. Okay, so open it up or turn it over. Let's look at 2B, or sorry, 3A. 3A. Okay, so 3A. Fraction equals a fraction, right? Cross multiply. First step, cross multiply. So let's do that first. Okay. I had a student ask me this, and no one's asked me, so I want to make sure because it's a great question. What if I have this? Okay, so I cross multiplied, Mr. Flores, but I had this. Is that okay? Is it okay if I have them in that order instead of the order you have? The answer is okay. Yes, it's okay, because an equal means they're balanced, right? So picture a balance, right? Measuring where you're measuring weight. On one side, I have 5 pounds. On the other side, I also have 5 pounds, right? They're balanced. So what if I switched them? I'm like, no, I want this 5 pounds over here and this 5 pounds over here. Still balanced, right? 5 pounds is 5 pounds, right? It's the same thing. If they're equal, they're equal. It doesn't matter which way they are. Okay, so that's okay. Let me move them back since most of you guys probably have them like this. All right, cross multiply, done. So now let's distribute. So when I distribute, I get x squared minus 3x equals negative 4x plus 20. Okay, so pause there. What is different about this problem compared to the last two we've done?
There's an x that has a square.
There's an x squared, right? Now I can't combine all the x's. It's a quadratic. So that means I'm going to get two answers. Well, we have steps for that, right? Step one says, it's on the board here. If you're in class, you can see it. It's set equation equal to 0. We always skip that step last part, right? Now we have to do that one. So I have to set it equal to 0 here. So I'm going to get everything on the left side. So in order to do that, I got to add 4x to both sides. Add 4x to both sides. Get plus 1x equals positive 20. Subtract 20 from both sides. I can't subtract 20 with 1 to make 19 or negative 19 because they're not like terms. So how do I write it? I just write negative 20 or minus 20. That part we've done before. We've done many, many times. It's a trinomial. X squared, 1x, negative 20. So I use those steps here. I already set it equal to 0. Is there a GCF here? No GCF. So ABC. I'm going to move it over here so I got more room. So we got ABC. A equals 1, B equals 1, C equals negative 20. So the two numbers that multiply to be negative 20 and add to be 1. 5 and negative 4. X plus 5, x minus 4. Okay. Next step, it said bottoms up. We haven't done bottoms up in a while, but do I need to do it for this problem here? No, no, because A is 1. If A is 1, don't need to do bottoms up. A is anything other than that, you need to. Okay. Remember, bottoms up means when you divide this number by A. Next step, difference of squares. Are any of these guys difference of squares? This one's really close, but it doesn't have a square, so nope. That's where I stopped because that's where I stopped factoring, but I need to solve. So what's the only added step? You remember?
Well, you then separate those x plus 5 and x plus 4 each about equal to their own 0.
There you go. Set them equal to 0 on their own, right? Separate them and set them equal to 0 on their own. So I get two answers, just like I said from the beginning. Subtract 5 from both sides. I get -5 as one of my answers. And I get +4 as the other answer. Check for extraneous. Would any of those answers make a 0 in the denominator of the original problem? Here or here? No, -5 is close, but it would make -10. If I plugged it in, it would make -10. So we got two answers, and they are correct. So 2 boxes on Delta Math, one for -5, another box for +4, enter, enter, green check mark. Okay. All right, so now what I want you to do, I'm going to give you about 5 minutes to do B right underneath it. I want you to do B on your own. Get as far as you can. And in about 5 minutes, I'll go over it. Okay. Okay, so I cross multiplied. Got 9 times x minus 8 and x times x minus 9. Distributive property, I saw I'm going to get an x squared. So since I get an x squared, I need to get everything on one side and set it equal to 0. And that's what I did there. Okay, if you don't get an x squared, you get x's on one side, numbers on the other, just like we did for number 1 and number 2, or for the last example 2a and b. Okay, so the two numbers that multiply to be 72 and add to be -18. Yep, -12 and -6. Yep, both negative. Okay, x minus 12, x minus 6. Separate and solve. Most of you guys can do this part in your head. You get 12 as one answer. And then you get +6 as the other answer. Okay. My last question is, would any of them cause a 0 in the denominator? Nope. 12 minus 8 makes 4, at 12 over here. 6 minus 8 makes -2, and then 6 over here. Those are both okay. You can get negatives, you can get positives, you can get fractions, you can get decimals. The only thing you can't get in the denominator of a fraction is 0.
So when you put 6, it's like replace the x with the 6. Like if you
Subtracted it.
Number by a negative number like greater than the number itself, then would this side be negative and the other positive?
Yes.
And that's still okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Watch. Because you didn't plug it into the top. What if I plug it into the top? Would I get a negative on top too?
Yeah.
So a negative, they would cancel each other out, right? Yeah, you can plug it into both. You can plug it in everywhere. That's another way to do it. But for these, you're always going to get that on the bottom. The bottom's the part that's going to cause situations with. Okay. All right. So the last part is a little different. Now it's not a fraction equals a fraction. You have two fractions either adding or subtracting on one side, and on the other side you have a fraction by itself. So before we can do cross multiplication, we have to do what we did on our quiz, right? This question right here was on your quiz, or very similar. It was like number 3 or 4 on your quiz. What did you do here? What was your steps to do this problem on your quiz on Friday? Or on your assignment before then? Common denominator, right? Yeah, common denominator. First thing we need to do is break down the denominators and figure out what's missing, right? So this one is just 5 and 1, right? This guy is just x. So this guy is missing an x. This guy is missing a 5. So it's going to be 5 times the top, and x times the top. Don't worry about the other side yet. We're not there yet. Just worried about this side. I need to add them together. So I need to use the steps that you did on the quiz. So now the common denominator is going to be 5x. And then over here, you're going to get 4x. And then you have a positive 5 that you're going to distribute with x plus 4. So distribute. You get 4x plus 5x plus 20 over 5x, right? And then the last step that you did on your quiz problem was combine like terms, right? So we get 9x plus 20 on top, 5x on the bottom, and we were done. You were done. That was the end of that problem, all right? That's step 1. The difference today is that's step 1. But the rest of the steps are exactly the same. Okay, so let me open it back up now. So the negative 7 over 5x I haven't used because I haven't need to. Now bring it down. Now I need to bring it down. Now I have a fraction equals another fraction. What do you think I'm going to do? Take a shot in the dark. Cross multiply. Yep. Cross multiply. And the steps repeat themselves. So I'm going to cross multiply these guys here. Cross multiply these guys here. So on one side I get negative 35x, negative 7 times 5x. On the other side I get 5x times 9x plus 20. Okay, distribute 5x. I get 45x squared plus 100x equals negative 35x. All right. Now it's got an x squared. So that means I need to get everything on one side. Everything on one side. If it's got an x squared, everything on one side. So that means add 35x to both sides, since it was negative before. Okay. Well, now it's not a trinomial. It's a binomial. It's got two terms instead of three like the last one. Okay, so we treat it as such. So if you're in class, you can look on the board and see the steps for a binomial. Set it equal to 0, done. Next step, GCF. GCF, what is the GCF going to be? Let me move it over here. 45x squared plus 135x equals 0. What's the GCF? What can I divide them both by? The biggest thing, 45 is the first one. Yeah, 45 goes into both of them. And then they also share x in common too. That's my GCF, 45x. When I divide them both by 45x, the only thing that's left over here is 1x plus 45 goes into 135 3 times. No more x over here. Last step, separate and solve. Set them both equal to 0. Set this guy equal to 0. Set this guy equal to 0. And solve. So I get 0 for one. And -3 as the other. Move this up a little bit. It's not so cramped. Okay. Okay, so one of them is going to be extraneous, though. Yeah, 0 is going to be extraneous because if I plug in 0 here, it's going to make a 0 there. Can't have 0 on the bottom. And if I plug in 0 here, it's going to make 0 as well. So I'm not going to put 0 as one of my answers. That's extraneous. The only one that's going to count, the only one I'm going to put is -3. I get 1 box, -3, enter twice. Okay. All right, let's do the last problem together, and if we have time, we'll do an extra practice problem. If not, that'll be done. Okay, so let's do the last one on your notes together first. This one's a minus. It got a minus on one side. Okay, so this one's a fraction. So this is a fraction, -3/4, minus another fraction, 8/x, equals another fraction, -5/4x. So we have to subtract these two guys first, like you did last week. Okay, so I'm just going to focus on this side first. To subtract these guys, I need a common denominator. Okay. 4 breaks down to 2 times 2. X breaks down to just x. Well, I need an x on the left. And I need a 2 times 2 on the right, which is the same thing as 4. Okay. So my common denominator is going to be 2 times 2 times x, 4x. The top is -3x minus 8 times 2 times 2, 32. Okay. Can't combine like terms because one has an x and one doesn't. -3 has an x, -32 doesn't. Okay. That's where we stopped last week on your quiz. But now, today, we got to bring this other guy down that I haven't used, -5/4x. Now I have a fraction equals a fraction. Cross multiply. So we have 20x on one side. On the other side, I have 4x times negative 3x minus 32. Okay, so in math, the way you take notes is you go as fast as you can. If you can go faster than me, go. Don't wait for me. Don't wait for me, okay? If you're stuck and you don't know, then catch a wait for me. Okay, so the only people that necessarily need to wait for me are the ones that are like, I've got as far as I can, or I don't know what the next step is. That's okay. But most of you guys are like, I know what to do next. Don't wait for me, do it. That's how you take notes in math. Okay? That's how I took notes all the way up through college. When my math teachers in college, if I knew what to do, I'm going to do that. And if I get stuck, I'll wait for them. And I'll be like, oh, I got stuck there. Okay? Distribute negative 12x squared minus 128x equals 20x. It's got an x squared, so I got to get everything on the same side. So this negative 20 or positive 20, I'm going to subtract from both sides, and it's going to subtract from negative 128. Wait, that's not right. What did I do wrong? Yes, yeah, it was a negative 5 up here. Yep, it was a negative 5 that got covered up. So it's supposed to be a negative 20. Thank you. So when I'm adding it to both sides. Thank you. So when we add it, I get negative 108x. Binomial. This is a binomial. It's equal to 0. It's got a squared, and it's two terms. So I'm going to follow the binomial terms. Set it equal to 0. That's what I just did. GCF. So what's the GCF going to be for negative 12x squared and negative 108? It's going to be negative 12x. Yeah, negative 12 and then an x. So I put negative 12x on the outside. GCF always goes on the outside. And then when I divide it, I get positive x plus 9. Okay, split it and solve it for 0. Set them equal to 0. Okay, so divide by negative 12 on one side, divide by negative 12 on the other side. I get 0. 0 on top means 0. On the other one, I subtract 9 from both sides. I get negative 9. Last step, just as important as the other steps, is to check to see if it's extraneous. If I plug in 0, that would give me 0 on the bottom. So 0 doesn't work. That won't always be the case. That's just coincidence today that 0 doesn't work twice. Okay. All right. Okay, so in the back, there should be some tape. Tape these in your notes. We don't have time today to do a practice problem, but we'll do some tomorrow. Okay. So pass them up. Pass up the tape. Tape them in your notes because next week we have a test. Your notes you get to use on your test. If you don't have your notes or they're not taped in, it's harder to use.